So in our last videos, we looked at perishables and how we adjust the markup on our products to cover not only the cost of the product. Remember that markup was to cover, of course, the expenses, labor, overhead, rent, utilities and stuff like that, and of course some sort of profit. But now part of the perishables, we added into that markup now the cost of unsold products in order then to get what we had to have for a unit selling price in order to reasonably assure that we were going to recover all those costs, even given that some of the products aren't going to sell. But in the last set of videos, we assumed that all those unsold products were a total loss. In other words, zero money from them. In reality, there are many times where they can be liquidated, closed out, for some sort of very minimal amount. If it's food, it might be able to sell like a day-old bakery, sells it extremely cheap. Or even for other applications, I know hunters buy expired baked goods and stuff like that for feeding animals. Or for shirts that are out of style, they can be sold very cheap for people that just don't care about style or whatever and need a cheap piece of clothing to use. So let's take a look at an example where there is that liquidation, that recovery of some sort of cost for those perishables. So we're going to look at Alex's Bakery. Makes 200 donuts a day. At a cost of 20 cents each. Alex expects, from history, of course, again from experience, about 10% to go unsold. Again, these could be ones that get broken, maybe misshapen, or just no demand that day. Alex needs a 120% markup on cost. Unsold donuts are sold on a secondary market, are sold for 10 cents each. Find the price to be charged per donut. So we need to consider that money that is recovered for those donuts that are sold on a secondary market, wherever it's sold to, a day-old bakery or whatever. So our step one is still the same. We're going to find the total cost. So we have 200 donuts times a price of 20 cents each, giving us a cost of $40 total cost. Step two is still the same. It's to find the markup. And of course, part of the markup is going to be finding that total selling cost. So cost plus markup equals that selling price. We are given here 120% markup on cost. So 120% goes in for the markup. Being on cost tells us 100% goes in for the cost. If we add those up, 100 plus 120, the selling price is going to be 220% of cost. For items like donuts where they are cheaper, the labor ends up being a larger expense than the materials, the ingredients. So that's why the large markup of 120%. Our total cost is $40. That's going to go in here for the cost. We are looking for the selling price. So ignore that middle row. We're going to have 220 times 40 divided by 100, which gives us $88 is our total selling cost or selling price that we need to recover from those donuts. So total selling price. Step 3 is slightly different. We need to find the amount sold and those unsold. So for this one, we said 10% go unsold out of 200. So what we're looking at here is we have the sold and unsold. Unsold is 10%. That's 0.10. So the sold would be 100 minus 10 would be 90%. 0.90. Again, that adds up. 10% unsold, 90% sold. 200 donuts. So for those that are sold, 200 times 0.9 is 180 donuts sold. We're going to hold on to that and use that in a little bit. For those unsold, 200 total times 10% or 0.10 gives us 20 that go unsold. That's going to be our next step here. I'm just going to call it step 3B. It's a extra step from our regular perishable problems. We have to find that recovered cost. So we had those 20 that went unsold, but we got 10 cents each for them, which gives us $2 of a recovered cost. Now that doesn't sound like much, but for step 4 now, when we go to find the unit price, unit selling price, we have to account for that $2 that's recovered. So we need a total selling price of $88. We're going to take that $88 and we're going to subtract the $2 that we already recovered from the unsold donuts, from the liquidated donuts. Then we're going to divide that by the number sold. There were 180 sold. So that 86 gets divided by 180 donuts. Once again, this will be an ugly decimal, so we'll round it to the nearest penny. So 0.477, that's going to be 48 cents per donut. So if we charge 48 cents each, it'll recover the cost of those unsold, accounting for that $2 that we recover by selling those spoiled or damaged donuts. So that is a perishable product with some sort of a liquidated cost recovery.